They thought laughter was weakness, but in the middle of hell, laughter was the only thing keeping humanity from losing its soul. The war had been raging for 7 years when the aliens finally noticed something strange. Amid the fire and ash, amid the ruins of Earth's shattered cities, human soldiers still laughed. It started as small bursts of sound between bombardments, nervous chuckles that escaped lips covered in dust and blood. A sniper might whisper a joke about missing breakfast before taking a shot. A medic might laugh after patching up a friend, shaking her head and saying, "Well, at least you still have the good leg." It wasn't the laughter of joy, but of defiance and instinctive rebellion against despair. From orbit, the alien commanders watched the transmissions with silent confusion. Their analysts studied every frame of human footage. Why did the species emit these strange sounds? They catalogued the patterns of laughter, the vocal frequencies, the cultural origins. They even assigned it a name, auditory coping anomaly, to 3B. To them, laughter was inefficient. It wasted oxygen. It distracted focus. Their species had long evolved beyond what they called emotion-driven inefficiencies. When the Xel'Thar warfleet conquered worlds, the inhabitants either surrendered or screamed. Never before had they laughed, but the humans laughed while dying. In the field, Captain Elena Rhodes was crouched in a burned-out subway station with 6 soldiers from the 3rd Earth Defense Division. The air was thick with the smell of plasma fire and melted concrete. Outside, drones patrolled like silent vultures. They had lost communication with command for weeks. Supplies were nearly gone. "All right," said Private Mason, cleaning his rifle. "When this is over, I'm gonna open a pizza place on Mars. No anchovies, though. I'm not feeding those freaks." The squad burst out laughing. The sound echoed through the tunnels like something holy. For a moment, it wasn't war, it was human again. Elena smiled. "Make sure you invite the Xel'Thar to the grand opening. They can be the toppings," Mason said. More laughter that night. As rain poured through the cracks in the broken ceiling, they sat around a dim emergency lantern, telling stories about ridiculous things about their old lives, bad first dates, songs they couldn't sing anymore. Each laugh was a spark in the darkness. High above, aboard the Xel'Thar flagship, the supreme strategist Korth watched the recordings. He didn't understand. "Why are they not broken yet?" he demanded. "They should be begging for extinction." His advisor hesitated. "Perhaps the sound is ritualistic, a form of collective madness." "No," Korth hissed. "It is resistance. I can feel it. These sounds are holding them together." He turned away from the screen, but the echoes of laughter followed him, faint, defiant, eternal. Down below, Elena's squad slept in shifts, smiles still on their faces. The world was crumbling, but for that one night, laughter had built a fortress stronger than steel. The Xel'Thar had conquered 98 intelligent species before humanity. Each had followed the same predictable pattern: terror, resistance, despair, extinction. But the humans were rewriting the script. Every time the Xel'Thar broadcasted footage of their destruction, cities burned, oceans boiled, monuments shattered, the humans replied with something the aliens could not comprehend: memes. Images of explosions captioned with dark humor, videos of soldiers dancing in ruined streets, messages scrawled on walls that read things like, "If you can read this, you're standing too close to Earth's last joke." At first, the Xel'Thar assumed it was a tactic to confuse them. Then, they decided it was madness. So they began to study it. In the cold laboratories aboard the orbiting Fortress Dominion Ark, alien scientists dissected captured broadcasts, translating human speech into neural frequency charts. They built AI systems to simulate laughter, to test if it could be weaponized, or if it was some hidden communication code. It wasn't. It was something far more dangerous. The humans exhibit emotional stabilization following these auditory patterns. One researcher reported their cortisol levels drop. Neural cohesion rises. Laughter, somehow, prevents full psychological breakdown. The supreme strategist Korth was silent for a long time. So they are using emotion as armor. Precisely. Their humor allows them to remain coordinated, creative, unpredictable. Unpredictable, the one word every Xel'Thar commander feared. Meanwhile, down on Earth, Captain Elena Rhodes and her squad were still alive. They had lost 2 soldiers in a skirmish near the ruins of Chicago, and the rest were bruised, hungry, and half insane from exhaustion. But even as they buried their friends under a cracked freeway, Mason broke the silence. "Think they're laughing at us from up there," he said, nodding toward the cloud-choked sky. Elena sighed. "Probably. Then we laugh louder," he said, and chuckled softly. It spread, like a contagion of defiance. The Xel'Thar listened through their drone's microphones. They heard laughter echoing from beneath the earth roar cracked, human, and they felt something they hadn't felt in generations. Fear, because laughter meant that humans still believed they were alive. The Alien Council convened an emergency session. This behavior cannot continue, declared one. If humor reinforces their unity, we must erase it. Prohibit all communication forms capable of emotional transmission. Orders were issued. Broadcast frequencies were jammed. Drone patrols were increased. Humans caught telling jokes were executed on sight. But the jokes didn't stop. They just went underground literally and figuratively. Graffiti turned into coded comedy. Songs hummed softly in the dark tunnels became acts of rebellion. Even dying soldiers whispered punchlines with their final breaths. And every time the Xel'Thar thought they had extinguished the human spark, they would hear it again through static, through rubble, through the chaos of war. Laughter, unfiltered, unbroken, undeniably alive. The study of madness had turned into something else entirely. The aliens were no longer the observers. They were the ones being studied by a species that laughed in the face of annihilation. The war entered its 9th year. Earth was barely recognizably a fractured wasteland, wrapped in storms and static. Yet somehow, life still clung to it like stubborn moss on a dead rock. Then came the broadcast. It began as a simple signal weak, glitching, barely detectable through the interference the Xel'Thar had imposed. But what emerged from that static was a voice. A human voice, cracking with laughter. "This is Commander Yolan Pierce of the United Terran Resistance," the voice said. "We may be dying, but damn it, we're doing it with style." The signal continued, switching between snippets of chaos. Soldiers laughing in mud. Medics cracking jokes while stitching wounds. Children drawing cartoons of alien invaders with big dumb heads. It wasn't propaganda. It wasn't even coherent. It was pure, unfiltered humanity. Then the music started. A soft, acoustic guitared off tune, recorded through a battered cum mic. The lyrics were improvised. "You can take our skies. You can crush our bones. But you'll never break the sound of laughter in our homes." The Xel'Thar intercept stations went silent as millions of their soldiers heard it. The transmission echoed across their occupied zones, bouncing between frequencies they couldn't block fast enough. To humans, it was a miracle. To aliens, it was an infection. Within a day, the broadcast was everywhere, smuggled into starports, copied into pirate feeds, replayed by rogue androids, even embedded in encrypted battle orders. Resistance cells called it the laughing signal. Korth, the supreme strategist, summoned his council. "You said this sound was meaningless," he growled, voice echoing in the metallic chamber. "Yet my soldiers hesitate when they hear it. Some even mimic it." His second-in-command looked nervous. "The sound, laughter, as they call it, seems to affect morale, even in our ranks. We've recorded instances of Xel'Thar recruits producing the noise involuntarily after extended exposure. Contagion. Psychological resonance. They begin to empathize with the humans." Korth's tendrils coiled in disgust. "Empathy is weakness. Silence this broadcast or burn the planet to ash." But the broadcast wouldn't die. Every time they jammed it, a new signal appeared from deep in the ruins, from old satellites humans had reprogrammed, even from the black box of a destroyed ship, and every version carried laughter. Commander Pierce's voice came again, distorted but unmistakable. "You came to break our will, but you forgot something, didn't you? We don't fight because we think we can win. We fight because losing without laughing is worse than death." That quote spread across every surviving human network. It became the rallying cry for the resistance, painted on walls, tattooed on arms, whispered in prayers. And somewhere in the middle of all the carnage, Captain Elena Rhodes heard it, sitting by a dying fire in a collapsed subway. She smiled faintly and whispered, "Still laughing? Huh, Commander." Her squad chuckled. Mason, ever the joker, grinned. "Guess humor's our last weapon." "No," Elena said, looking up through the cracks at the burning sky. "It's our first." Above them, in orbit, alien soldiers began muttering among themselves. Some found themselves replaying the broadcast, curious about the strange vibration in their chests when they heard it. For the first time in Xel'Thar history, laughter had breached an empire, and the universe was listening. At first it was a whisper in the barracks of the Xel'Thar soldiers, a sound that shouldn't have existed among them, a sharp exhale, a strange, broken rhythm, something halfway between a cough and a giggle. No one dared acknowledge it. The Xel'Thar military doctrine forbade emotion outside of controlled ritual expressions. Their kind believed feeling was a defect, something primitive left behind on lesser worlds. But then it happened again. A technician, monitoring a captured human broadcast, emitted a small ha. Others turned to stare. His mandibles trembled. He tried to explain it as a reflex, an air pressure response. Yet for a moment the sterile control room felt lighter. It was contagious. Every alien who studied the laughing signal began to experience odd emotional fluctuations, tiny bursts of what human scientists once called dopamine waves. It was like tasting color for the first time. And the more they heard humans laugh, the more it spread. Within weeks, reports came in, units hesitating to execute captured humans, soldiers exchanging strange gestures, mimicking smiles, maintenance crews humming offbeat human melodies. The Xel'Thar hierarchy panicked. Supreme Strategist Korth summoned his war council again. "Contain this corruption," he thundered. "Emotion destroys discipline. This laughter must be purged." But even as he spoke, one of his lieutenants standing rigid at attention let out a soft snort. The chamber froze. Korth's cold eyes narrowed. "What was that sound?" "Apologies, Supreme Strategist," the lieutenant stammered. It escaped. Korth leaned forward, voice sharp as a blade. "Do you find extinction amusing, soldier?" The lieutenant hesitated. Then something unprecedented happened. He smiled. "I don't know why," he said quietly, "but when I hear them laugh, I feel alive." The council erupted in chaos. Some demanded his execution. Others, though silent, felt something stir in their cores. The infection was real. Down on Earth, the humans were barely surviving. Captain Elena's squad had lost 2 more members. They were down to 4 herself, Mason, and 2 new recruits who still flinched at thunder. But even then, they joked. One night, as they scavenged for supplies, they stumbled upon a downed Xel'Thar drone. Mason was the first to touch it, grinning. "Hey, Captain, think we can reprogram this thing to tell jokes." Elena laughed. "If it works, we'll have the first alien stand-up comedian." They dragged the broken drone into an abandoned mall and tinkered for hours. To their surprise, its vocal emitter still functioned. Mason uploaded a few sound clips from old comedy archive snippets of laughter. Silly one-liners, even children's giggles. When the drone rebooted, its optical sensors flickered. Then, in a monotone alien voice, it said, "Knock, knock." Elena blinked. "What? Knock, knock." Mason snorted. "Who's there?" "Your impending doom, haha." The squad burst into laughter, clutching their sides. Even the drone paused, analyzing the sound, and then it emitted a small, artificial chuckle. That moment changed everything. They realized laughter could be taught, programmed, shared. Within days, resistance engineers began embedding humor code into hacked drones, spreading laughter through the Xel'Thar communication network like wildfire. The aliens tried to shut it down, but the code mutated, converting battle commands into punchlines. On a Xel'Thar destroyer orbiting Mars, the navigation system suddenly blared. "Warning, morale too low. Suggest joke." Then the system told one. Half the crew laughed before realizing what they were doing, and just like that, the unthinkable happened. The Xel'Thar Empire began to fracture from within, not from human weapons, but from human laughter. For the first time in history, a war wasn't just fought with fire and steel, but with joy. By the 10th year of the war, the mighty Xel'Thar war machine was no longer a force of terror, was a comedy of errors. Their battle layers kept glitching, repeating punchlines instead of commands. Troop announcements began with knock, knock. The once pristine discipline of the alien legions had dissolved into chaos. Soldiers hesitated mid-fight because someone nearby had started giggling uncontrollably. The infection wasn't physical, it was psychological. Laughter had become a virus the Xel'Thar couldn't cure, and the humans knew it. In the ruins of old London, the United Terran Resistance had gathered their last surviving generals, engineers, and storytellers. They weren't planning a military strike this time. They were planning a broadcaster final one. Captain Elena Rhodes stood before a cracked camera lens, her uniform tattered, her face lit by the blue flicker of a dying power cell. Behind her were musicians with scavenged instruments, and beside her, Mason stood grinning, holding the reprogrammed alien drone they'd dubbed Jester. Elena took a deep breath. To any human, alien, or machine that can hear this, this isn't a call to arms. It's a call to laugh. The drone whirred. Commencing transmission. Operation Joystorm. And then it began. They broadcast everything old Earth sitcoms, stand-up routines, jokes from soldiers in the trenches, laughter recorded from children long gone. The signal was layered with emotion and memory, echoes of humanity's most sacred sound. The broadcast pulsed through every communication array the Resistance had ever hijacked. From the shattered remains of satellites to the cores of alien ships, laughter filled the void. In orbit, Korth watched helplessly as the sound spread through his fleet like wildfire. His flagship's screens flashed with corrupted data, all reading the same phrase. Why so serious? Crew members began chuckling, then laughing, then sobbing while laughing. Korth roared, slamming his clawed hands against the console. You will not corrupt me with your madness. But the sound reached him too. A clip from the human broadcast played Commander Pierce's old voice. You can crush our bones, burn our world, but if you make us laugh first, we've already won. Something inside Korth cracked not his armor, but something deeper. His mandibles twitched, his throat convulsed, and for the first time in his species' long, emotionless history, the supreme strategist of the Xel'Thar let out a sound that no alien had ever made before. He laughed. It was a broken, guttural, awkward noise, but it was laughter all the same. The sound spread through the command deck like a contagion. Officers began to laugh with him, not in mockery, but in something close to understanding. The warship's lights dimmed. Systems began to shut down not from damage, but because the A is corrupted by humor code, had begun reciting Earth comedy routines instead of war protocols. Down on the surface, Elena's squad watched the night sky flare with the glow of collapsing enemy ships. Mason whispered, "Is it over?" Elena smiled faintly. "No, it's changing." For hours, explosions faded into silence, then into a strange, universal calm. The Xel'Thar transmissions went dark. Human scanners detected no coordinated activity, no retaliation, just fragments of alien frequencies replaying distorted laughter. Across the war-torn planet, survivors crawled from bunkers and rubble, staring upward. For the first time in years, the stars looked peaceful. And as dawn crept over the ruins of Earth, the sound that rose from humanity wasn't a battle cry, it was laughter, soft, tired, victorious, because in the end, the empire of silence had fallen not to weapons, but to the oldest, simplest magic of all, the sound of joy. The war ended not with treaties or surrender, but with silence followed by laughter echoing across a broken world. In the weeks after the last Xel'Thar ships went quiet, humanity stepped out from the ruins like ghosts rediscovering sunlight. The air still smelled of smoke and plasma. The ground was littered with the bones of cities, but above it all hung something new, hope. Captain Elena Rhodes stood on the balcony of what had once been the United Nations building. The structure was half collapsed, vines crawling up its walls, but the banner of the resistance fluttered in the wind. Around her, humans rebuilt not because they had to, but because laughter had taught them that life was still worth living. Beside her, Mason leaned against a cracked column, grinning. "So, Captain, what's next? Pizza place on Mars still in the plans?" Elena laughed softly. "If we ever get Mars back online, you'll be the first franchise owner," good, he said. First jokes on the house. They both smiled, watching the sunrise cut through the dust. But peace wasn't simple. The Xel'Thar had retreated into deep space, leaving behind broken ships and shattered colonies. Some humans wanted revenge, others wanted understanding, and somewhere, amid the static of abandoned alien frequencies, there were voices, not orders, not threats, laughter. It began faintly recordings of alien soldiers laughing with each other, mimicking human humor, trying to understand it. Then came transmissions, translated into broken English. "We do not understand why it feels good. Teach us more about this thing funny. We want to laugh with you." At first, humanity thought it was a trick, but then, a small ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, not a warship, but a vessel marked with symbols of peace. It landed outside the ruins of Geneva. From it emerged 3 Xel'Thar envoys, unarmed. Their armor was repainted with strange, colorful marking smiley faces, crudely drawn by alien hands. They approached slowly, their movements uncertain. One of them, taller than the rest, looked at Elena and said in broken, accented English, "You, humans, dangerous. You make chaos, you make jokes. We want to learn." The soldiers around her aimed their rifles, but Elena raised a hand. Then, to everyone's astonishment, she laughed. "Welcome to the club," she said. From that moment, something remarkable began. Human comedians started performing for alien audiences. Engineers taught Xel'Thar translators how to interpret punchlines. Psychologists worked with alien scientists to study emotional resonance, the neurochemistry of joy. The Xel'Thar, once conquerors of 100 worlds, became students of the species they had tried to annihilate. They called it the Age of Resonance. Over time, humans and Xel'Thar built colonies together, not forged in fear, but in shared curiosity. Together they learned that laughter was not merely noise, it was connection. It was the one universal constant that could bridge even the deepest void. One night, years later, Elena sat outside her rebuilt home in New London, watching the stars. Beside her sat Mason and a young Xel'Thar cadet named Curvin who had been born after the war. The alien asked, "Why do humans laugh when sad?" Elena smiled, "Because it's how we fight despair, then laughter is weapon." She shook her head gently. "No, it's armor." Curvin tilted his head, thinking, and, awkwardly, he attempted a laugh, a strange, gurgling sound that made Mason chuckle instantly. The three of them sat beneath the starlit sky, laughing together, their voices blending into something new, something beautiful. And somewhere light years away, in the archives of the Xel'Thar Empire, a new record was added, species number 99, humanity, primary weapon, humor status, invincible, epilogue. They once thought laughter was madness, but in the end, it became the language that saved two civilizations.